Hi, I'm Janjan, and in this video I'm going to be making something for my Nana. She turned 90 this year and she's always really enjoyed seeing what I make, so I wanted to make something for her. I decided on a lamp because that's something that she can use every day and kind of show off in her living room. So let me show you how I made it. Now the thing about Nana is she has expensive taste. So I started out with this big lump of black wool. And then the rest of it is going to be stored away for a future project. Now I've got this knot here which is a bit problematic, but I think it's just about outside the dimensions that I need. So I took it over to the table saw and cut away that part. And immediately got the offcut trapped. But never mind, moving on. I took it over to the bandsaw to separate out the two halves. These are going to go either side of a big piece of sapele. Then I took it back to the table saw to clean up those angled sides. Unfortunately, it turns out that that setup was not square, so I had a little bit of work to do with the hand plane. But after about 10 minutes of work, I had them nicely smoothed out and both perfectly even. Then I used this MDF template to route in the side profile. I marked out the rough dimensions with a hand cut. Then I used blue tape and super glue to attach the template. Then I go over to the router table and carve in that shape. Once I got the start of that shape transferred, I could take off the blue tape and then use a flush trim router bit just to take it to final size all the way across. And I did the same on the sapele. This time I thought I'd try using double-sided tape instead. Nice and secure. This, however, didn't go so well when it came to separating them.
Oh dear. Oh no.
I had to scrape away this horrible residue before I could move on. But it ended up okay, and this side's never going to be seen anyway. Next, I took the sapele over to the drill press so that I could drill in the central hole to hold the light fitting. I stuck the offcut to the angled side and used that as a reference to get it perfectly plumb. Then I had to make creative use of the drill press in order to actually fit this under the drill. Slightly annoyingly, as you can see, I should have clamped down the base of the drill because it ended up being just a little bit wonky. Then I used a combination square to get a 45-degree angled hole which met up with the bottom of that main hole. And I did the same on the bottom to get a hole that came straight out of the middle of the bottom. And it mostly lined up. Well enough to put a wire through, and that's what I'm aiming for. However, I realised it didn't actually work once the light fitting was in there. I glued in a plug at the same size as that main hole and shoved it right to the bottom. Then I epoxied in the stem of the light fitting. Then when that was set, I drilled down the centre of that stem and rejoined the holes. Then the wire would go through perfectly. Once that was done, I used a router to join the two angled holes with a channel. And this is where the wire will go once it's fully assembled. And I waxed it to make sure the wire would definitely slide through there smoothly. Then I clamped it all up in the vise and tried to push the wire through as a test.
Yes!
With all the pieces mostly done, I stuck some sandpaper to the planer and used that to get a perfectly flat surface on all the mating sides. Then I glued up all the pieces, making sure to get them as flush as I possibly could. And I had to use angled clamping strips just to make sure that I was actually able to get the clamps on without damaging the piece. Once that was done, it was down to the final planing just to make sure that all the surfaces were perfectly flat and smooth. Now I'll admit that I'm not amazing at using a hand plane, but I got much better over the course of this project. Then I sanded every surface and broke the edges by hand. Next I drilled and chiselled a small channel so that I could get the wire to come out of the back at the bottom. And then it was down to finishing. I decided to use a hard wax oil for this one, and between coats I just rubbed it down with some very fine grit sandpaper, and the sheen came out really nice and really consistent. Thankfully, after all that hard work, the cable slid in perfectly and I could wire in the light fitting. I also added a small brass strip at the bottom just to hold the cable in place. Then all it needed was a shade. And this is what it looked like in my bedroom. I am super pleased with how this came out. I think it's a really elegant piece, and Nana loved it when I gave it to her. She even kept the ribbon on from the wrapping, and I actually think it looks really good with that still on there. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making this project. Thanks for watching.